Bonjour, my name is Joan Lapuchelle, or Joan the Maid. You may know me by a different name, Jeanne d'Arc, or Joan of Arc in English. In the year 1412, I was born in Domremy, France, to Jacques d'Arc and Isabelle Romain. My mother taught me to believe in the Catholic Church. During my childhood, I began to hear the voices of 3 saints, Saint Margaret, Saint Catherine, and Saint Michael. I recall the first time I heard their voices, I was in my family's garden, and I continued to hear them from then on. They continued to guide me throughout my life and military career. Also in my childhood, my village was attacked by the English. My family was forced to flee. This brought me to go to the Dauphin, also known as Prince Charles, the ruler of France. Because he did not believe me to be credible, he forced me to pick him out of a crowd. I successfully did this. Thank you very much. I brought him to Reims to be coronated. This was the beginning of my military career. I fought in the 100 Years' War for the French and against the British. My first and most prominent battle was the Siege of Orleans, which my brothers Pierre and John also fought in. Back to normal. Another battle I fought in, I was shot in the shoulder, but I continued to fight. Into battle, I wore a suit of pure white armor and rode a pure white horse. In my efforts to look more boyish, I rarely ate. This unfortunately and eventually led to me having anorexia. Anorexia is caused by the warped or overly fearful view of being overweight. It makes a person incredibly skinny. Often, I thought the other soldiers did not take me very seriously and thought of me as a sort of mascot. Despite this, I thought I fought bravely, and I helped the French to victory. Maybe one day I can help France fight again. I cannot currently do that. I'm telling you this now, as I am currently on trial in English territory. I was captured outside of the city of Champagne when I was pulled off of my horse. The people who captured me traded me to the English. When I heard of this, I attempted to throw myself out of a tower. I survived the 70-foot fall. I have heard no word of King Charles' attempt to rescue me. We've been fighting recently. He wants to pursue peace, while I, logically, want to fight. Perhaps he has abandoned me. At least I know God won't forsake me. May he save and redeem me in the arms of death, if I do end up dying. Goodbye, maybe forever, if this doesn't turn in my favor. As an epilogue, Joan's trial ended when she was condemned to death for witchcraft and heresy, among other things. She was burned at the stake on May 30th, 1431. Her last recorded words were, "Jesus, Jesus," repeated several times over. Several centuries later, in 1920, she was canonized by Pope Benedict XV, although she had been idolized for many decades prior. Thank you for listening to my speech. I hope you have a great day.
Hi, my name is Frederick Douglass. I was born into slavery on a tobacco, corn, and wheat farm in the middle of Maryland. When I turned 8, I was sent to work for a family of the Alds. Now, Sophia, the mother, was very nice to me. She taught me how to read and learn the alphabet. Hugh, which is the father, wasn't very nice. When he found out that Sophia was teaching me, he threatened to beat me. Then I started making friends with the poor boys on the street. They taught me how to read complete sentences and how to talk. On January 1st, 1835, I was sent to Baltimore by my master to work in the shipyard. After 3 years working, I found a way to escape. I had camouflaged as a sailor and had free papers. From there on out, all I needed to do was find a train. When I found the train that was going to Havre de Grace, Maryland, I got super excited. when I made the stop in Maryland, I decided to go to New York. I was like, why not? Then from New York, I went to Massachusetts. And that's where I found the love of my life, Anna Murray. After a year or two in New Bedford, in Massachusetts, New Bedford, I noticed that there was an abolishment movement, and I thought I wanted to join. During those gatherings, I was presented to the amazing works and papers of abolishment and communalist William Lloyd. William was actually the person who urged me to persuade and become a speaker and pioneer in the abolishment development. Us two in the long run were actually approached to talk about the abolishment meetings, and from there I shared about my story and slavery and how to escape. Now this is the epilogue. After William's wife, Anna Murray, died, he then married a Caucasian activist, Hella Pitts, that's my bad, in 1884. Douglass remained a speaker, writer, and activist, which he died in 1895. Frederick Douglass died of a heart attack while he was going to his home after a meeting in the National Council of Women, a women's rights group which still is in its fancy at the time in D.C. Through all the hardships Douglass went through, he still lives his legacy. Thank you for listening to my speech, and have a wonderful day.
Hello, my name is Jane Herbert Wilkinson Long. I'm a Texas colonizer and boarding house owner. I was born in 1798 in Charles County, Maryland. My young life was a struggle. This is because many of my dear family members passed when I was at a young age. It all started with my father, who passed when I was only a year old. After my father's death, my mother and I left to go live in Mississippi Territory in Washington. Sadly, my mother passed away when I was about 15 years old. After my mother passed away, I was on my own, but my older sibling, Barbara, reached out and allowed me to live with her. I had a distant relative who was named General James Wilkinson, and he later adopted me. I met James Long. He was a doctor at Port Gibson. We married and had a child named Mary James. James and I lived our lives peacefully until James went to Mexico, and there he was assassinated. The authorities told me that he had met a man by the name of Aaron Burr, and him and James plotted to steal Louisiana from Spain. James had regrets about what they were going to do and went to President Thomas Jefferson about their plan. Aaron Burr was captured, and James attempted to leave, but he was shot on sight by a guard in the summer of 1822. I was devastated, but I managed to pull through with the help of my slave, Kian, and my daughter, Mary James. I couldn't manage to keep my children out of harm's way. My slave, Kianatia, and my daughter, Mary James, and my newest child, Anne Herbert, all faced a harsh winter alone on the Bolivar Peninsula. We had very little protection and barely any food or water. I tried so hard to protect my family, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to succeed. Later in my life, I began my career in boarding houses and plantations. I opened my very first boarding house at the age of 39. I grew cotton, sold land, and raised cattle with the help of my slaves. I had slaves worth $13,000, and my entire plantation was worth $10,000 in 1851.
My name is Nathan Hale. I'm a soldier in the Continental Army. I'm also doing other service for my country, including fighting an elite group of soldiers called the Rangers. Before I was a soldier fighting for freedom and independence, I was a simple teacher, aiding students so they could have a valuable education. I was eager to help the American cause in any way I could. I was born in Coventry, Connecticut in 1755 and was raised in a large family with a total of 12 children. I loved to read and was eager to have an education. At 14 years old, me and my brother headed to Yale University. At college, I played sports like wrestling and was in a secret club that talked about books. I also studied Greek, Latin, and philosophy. In 1773, I graduated at Yale, and before long, I became a teacher. Only boys are allowed to receive a major education. I believe that girls should also receive an education. Later, I heard about the battles of Lexington and Concord. I then attended a town meeting where I supported American independence and said we should go fight with the rest of the colonists against England. I was soon given a place in the army under Henry Knox in Boston. I became an officer and trained men in our camp. Several men wished to go back to their families and leave the army. I saw this would leave the U.S. low on men and volunteered to give them my pay. Disease was spreading across our camp. I helped those who were ill. In January 1776, I was promoted to captain. I was put under General Washington in New York City. Myself and my men spotted a British ship full of supplies and weaponry. That night, I snuck out in a rowboat with my men and raided the ship and successfully captured it and brought it all back to the Continental Army. I was proud to bring back the supplies and weaponry to the Continental Army. This successful mission rewarded me with joining the Rangers. The Rangers are an elite group of soldiers that carry out special and unique missions. They are led by Colonel Knowlton. George Washington needs a spy to look into the British positions. I'm willing to do it. I'm the only one who will do it. The other Rangers know that spying is a death sentence. I hope to leave an impact in my country that will be remembered. I'll be disguising as a teacher looking for a job. I might die on this mission as a spy, but I hope my country will become a strong and independent nation. Later, Nathan Hale would be caught by the British, then taken to General Howe, where he would be revealed as a spy. Then he would be hanged for treason on September 22nd, 1776, at the age of 21 years old. His last words were, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country." He would be remembered as a symbol of self-sacrifice and bravery across the United States. Later, he'd be declared as Connecticut State Hero in 1980.
My name is Lucretia Coffin-Mott. I was a 19th century committed activist and feminist. During my lifetime, I was presented with many opportunities and completed many personal goals. When I first started teaching, I was presented with the idea of gender inequality, where I was only paid half the salary of men. This is what started my journey for equal rights. I wrote and co-wrote many speeches on behalf of gender equality, like the Declaration of Sentiments, which started the fight for women's suffrage by putting the word woman into the text of the Declaration of Independence, with 18 woman-specific demands. An advertisement published in the Seneca County Courier talking about information for the Seneca Falls Convention, and an influential called The Discourse on Women, describing and talking about the injustices done on women in marriage. Being born a Quaker, I was raised with peace, integrity, equality, and more, but I was judged and mistreated for what I supported. I was very fortunate to be able to speak out at meetings throughout Delaware and Pennsylvania, talking about slavery and equal rights for Americans throughout the nation. In 1843, I was also called to speak in a Unitarian church, after being turned away from the U.S. One of my biggest accomplishments was speaking at the White House. Even though I didn't have an invitation, it did not stop me from speaking directly to the president himself. My husband, James Bott, and I both had the convenience of being invited to attend the world's anti-slavery convention in London. At the convention, a reporter thought of me as the lioness of the convention. Throughout the 1820s, I traveled about the country presenting lectures on religion and questions of social reform, including temperance, the abolition of slavery, and peace. I helped found and direct many organizations in my years, such as the Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society and the Women's Auxiliary, which focused on holding anti-slavery petitions and public meetings, organizing fundraising efforts, and financially supporting free blacks. In 1864, I helped found the co-educational Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania, and with help of other Quaker leaders, it became consistently ranked as one of the top liberal arts colleges in the nation. Lastly, I was nominated for president of the Equal Rights Association, as I helped secure equal rights for all Americans, including the rights of suffrage and irrespective of race, color, and gender. With help, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and I also developed a women's rights convention, which fought for social, civil, and religious rights of women. Every step of the way, I was greatly supported by many people for what I did.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Lucas Pickney. I will be talking about my life as a child, where I was in England to South Carolina, where I started my business as an indigo planter. I was born in Antigua on December 28, 1722. I moved to England. I studied French and music, but my favorite was botany. I moved to South Carolina to continue my father's job as an indigo planter when my father left me, my mother, and my younger sister, Polly. Unfortunately, my mother died as soon as he left us. My father, George Lucas, sent me seeds, hoping that Wapu, my plantation, would provide a profitable crop. In 1740, I wrote a letter to my father that I thought the indigo would be better than the other things I had tried. George sent Nicholas Cromow to do an indigo works at Wapu. In 1744, I married Charles, a native lawyer. Charles, my two sons, Charles Cotsworth and Thomas, and I spent time on Charleston Neck, known as Belmont, where I experimented with crops. My husband died in 1758. I became a plantation manager. My sons, Charles and Thomas, became diplomats for the young U.S. in 1804. Charles loved experimental farming and was an early planter of Sea Island cotton, an excellent cotton used in high-quality goods. He shared his knowledge with other planters, just as I had shared mine. My son, Thomas, was U.S. Minister to Spain and Great Britain. In 1768, I married a rice planter, Daniel Horry. My sons moved to South Carolina and helped me manage the plantations. In 1793, I died in Philadelphia. I was 70 years old, where I went for medical treatment. George Washington was a pallbearer at my funeral. My journal, The Journals and Letters of Eliza Lucas, was published in 1850. In 1989, I was the first woman inducted into South Carolina Business Hall of Fame. Today, I would be the subject of talk shows and TV movies, a child turned into a celebrity. I will never forget my two sons who helped me during hard times and when I needed them the most. I was a hard-working woman, and I never gave up. I reached my goal as an indigo planter. I helped my dad achieve his goal to complete our indigo plantation. If it wasn't for me, indigo wouldn't have existed. I hope you enjoy my story.
I am Simón Bolívar, or El Libertador. I am a Spanish conquistador. I helped small countries gain their independence. In 1807, I have found out that Napoleon had crowned Joseph Bonaparte as King of Spain and its colonies, and I disagreed with his actions, which included Venezuela. So, I joined the resistance movement. In 1810, the Caracas-based resistance gained independence, and I traveled to Britain on a diplomatic mission. Back home, the fight for dominance of Caracas, Venezuela, and much of South Africa raged on. I returned to Venezuela at long last, and I had begun a campaign to take control of the country from the Spanish. It is now May 14th, 1813. My supporters and I invaded Venezuela, kicking off my Admiral campaign, which culminated in the founding of Venezuela's Second Republic. I am now dubbed El Libertador because of the Republic's civil war. I was forced to move to Jamaica and seek foreign help. I will detail my vision of a South American Republic parliamentary system modeled after England in a lifetime President famous letter from Jamaica. Politicians and other thinkers will strongly criticize my idea of becoming a nation's chief that cannot be taken from power. I returned home to my continent, gaining support from Haiti. I became involved in many military wars and ultimately claiming several territories. Under my leadership, Colombia was established in 1821. Most of what is now Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, and Ecuador was part of this union. Bolivar was now the president of Gran Colombia and Peru's tyrant. Just a tiny part of the continent, Upper Peru, was under royalist control. The liberation of that region fell to Sucre, one of Bolivar's most brilliant officers. And in April 1825, he reported that the task had been completed. Bolivia was the name chosen for the new nation, a play on the liberator's name. Bolivar drafted a constitution for the child of his genius, revealing his authoritarian tendencies once more. It established a one-term president, a three-chamber legislature, and a highly restricted suffrage system. Bolivar was committed to his own making, but the Constitution was a disappointment as the instrument of social reform that he had envisioned. Bolivar resigned as president in 1830, declining all offers on becoming a president on a permanent basis, choosing to remain a citizen. He intended to sail to Europe, but became ill with tuberculosis before he could leave. On December 17, 1830, however, Simón Bolívar had died in Santa Marta, Colombia, after a battle that may have been tuberculosis. Bolivar's presence can still be seen today in many monuments, plaza squares, and many likings that bear his name in South and North America. Several cities and towns in the United States bear his name, and monuments and roads bearing his name could be found in Egypt, Australia, and Turkey.
Greetings, I am David Farragut, famed as the first American admiral. People know me for my early start in the Navy as a child and my service in the Civil War, but what everybody remembers is my promotion to admiral. I was born on July 5th, 1801, near Knoxville, with the original name of James. My father, George Farragut, was a Spanish merchant captain who served in the Revolutionary War. At a very young age, I was sent away from my home in Tennessee. I was there befriended and later adopted by Captain David Porter, who served on the frigate Essex. In honor of Captain Porter, I changed my name to David. I started out in the Navy when I was just 9 years old and joined Porter as a midshipman during the War of 1812. After a few years, when I grew to be 12, I was a prize master and was in charge of all captured ships. People are impressed by my early start in the Navy and my early rise in the ranks. It was very nice, but unfortunately, I had to go back to school. After spending some time in school, though, in 1823, I once again served under Porter in the Navy. It was good to be back. Once a while passed and a few promotions came, I finally earned my own independent command in 1824. People credit my campaigns during the Civil War to be essential to the Union's victory over the South, and I believe that it was. The armies came in and took all of the cities, only with my help on the coast. During the secession crisis, I had to move my family wife and children to Norfolk, Virginia, in the North. Once the Civil War actually broke out, though, I was back in command of the Navy. I remember commanding a blockading squadron just outside the Mississippi River and went in guns blazing into New Orleans and took the Confederate squadrons there by surprise. That gave the armies the ability to come in and take the city. I also remember the Battle of Vicksburg to help Ulysses Grant take the city, and Mobile Bay, perhaps my most remembered achievement. I remember those torpedoes and that ironclad Tennessee. I went in with 2 columns of ships with monitors leading. When the lead monitor was blown up, the lead main ship, the Brooklyn, stopped short. I ordered them to continue, but when they still didn't push on, I climbed up the rigging and shouted them the order to continue. They replied, "Torpedo!" I saw that they wouldn't move, so I told my ship to continue onwards, and we did. We went through, and luck had our side, and the torpedoes did not go off. We pulled in and faced the ironclad Tennessee. What followed was a long battle, with unimaginable amounts of cannon fire and several rams by our own ship into the ironclad. Eventually, though, the Tennessee surrendered, along with the forts around Mobile Bay. This was the final battle of my active naval career. Though the Battle of Mobile Bay was the final major event of my active naval career, my achievements did not go unnoticed. In 1862, I was promoted to Rear Admiral, a rank that was not used up until now, as the United States did not wish to copy the British rank structure, but I was named this anyways. I was also promoted to Vice Admiral in 1864, along with a few other select officers, and joined the Naval High Command, but Congress didn't stop there. In July of 1866, I was promoted to a full admiral, the first ever in the United States. This is why most people know me across the U.S. Currently, I mainly travel to European countries and meet with leaders on peaceful visits. I still very much enjoy sailing and wish to do it for the rest of my days. As an epilogue, David Farragut went on with his peaceful trips until his health rapidly deteriorated. In Portsmouth, New Hampshire, he wandered onto the Dale, a ship scheduled to be scrapped, and climbed its rigging. There he announced, "This is the last time I shall ever tread the deck of man of war." He died at the age of 69. It is said that the ship's bells in the harbor were the final thing he ever heard.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Van Loo. I was born on October 12, 1818, in Richmond, Virginia. I lived in a beautiful town. I'm here to explain that my life is a bit different than an average lady's life. I'm 43 years old and live with my mother in a 3-story mansion next to the Confederates' capital. Now, most say what I do is spy work, but I consider it an obligation. I often go to Libby Prison, where much of my work is focused on. Libby Prison gained an infamous reputation for the overcrowded and harsh conditions the prisoners got. Prisoners suffered from disease, malnutrition, and a high mortality rate. By 1863, 1,000 prisoners were crowded into large open rooms with open barred windows, leaving them exposed to weather and temperature extremes. You see why I need to help them. I get there with baskets full of food, and I usually bribe the officers to let me through. It's never been a problem, because the officers are in desperate need of money during these times. During the days I'm free, I hollow out eggs and books and put secret messages in them. The messages are usually about the plans to escape that dreadful place. I also have a slave. Her name is Mary Bowser, and she is part of the union I created. She helps me with finding secret messages. She also has a photographic memory, so that definitely helps. She looks over professors' papers and sees them usually planning to put different guards in different places, and she returns to me with very classified information. I use the classified information to make escape plans and blueprints of the Libby prison. Another Van Loo spy, Erasmus Ross, was an undercover agent inside Libby prison. He works as a guard, checking to make sure inmates were present at daily roll calls. I created a spy union of 12 people successfully. General John H. Wonder, to allow them to bring food and medication to the Union soldiers and imprisoned there under the help of the female benevolence. With this physician, they were able to pass messages to and from the prison, help prisoners access extra food and water, and help prisoners escape at a great financial and social expense to themselves. All of this has helped me create and evolve what I am today. I want to do something about all of this. I want the Civil War to end. I hope people can take my work seriously and learn and reflect it towards others. I'm honored to help the lost and the poor, the weak and the afraid, and the ones that can't escape that dreadful place. I'm honored to be a spy. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jean Lafitte, a noble Louisiana folk hero, privateer, and ally in the Battle of New Orleans. Even as a young child, I always dreamed of helping others out and becoming a privateer. My mother and father were Jewish, but grew up in France and Spain. I have two older half-brothers, Pierre and Alexander. Both of them were privateers and inspired me to become one too. After leaving Haiti because of the revolution, I moved to New Orleans. There, General Jackson and I have just succeeded in the Battle of New Orleans. I was able to supply the general with troops, rations, and guns. I also had knowledge of the land from escaping American militia. Using this knowledge, the general and I gained an extra leverage in the battle because of the rolling hills of the area. The British have already come to me with a deal before the Americans for help in exchange for financial rewards and other items. They also offered me around $30,000 and a position as general in the British Army. I declined this offer, knowing that I wanted Pierre, my crew, and I to be pardoned on all illegal activities we have done, and that would only happen if we helped the Americans. 1 month ago, I went up to Philadelphia and Washington looking for President Madison, for whom I would plead my case for a pardon. After returning home to Philadelphia unsuccessfully, I opened up my own secret smuggling shop and disguised it as a blacksmithing shop. I am also currently working at Barataria Bay, in which I help and teach pirates and criminals by giving them jobs and also teaching them to be more orderly and act like a gentleman, which has won me the praise of the citizens. I am also working around the clock transporting slaves from slave ships to the bay, in which slave owners come and buy the slaves, and they pay us handsomely for it. I also smuggle other contraband, but my crew and I mainly focus on slaves. I have started receiving letters of help from Venezuela, Colombia, and Buenos Aires. All these countries are asking me to help them in their fight for revolution against Spain. I have just sent a letter to Colombia and awaiting their response. This is an epilogue to Jean Lafitte's life that features facts from 1815 to his death. President Madison did later pardon Jean and his crew in February of 1815. It didn't take long for Jean to do something illegal, though. After learning that Jean was selling slaves in Barataria, the governor placed a $750 bounty on Jean's head for these illegal activities. Being forced to flee New Orleans because of these search parties and bounties, Jean set up Galveston in Texas. Jean was the governor of Galveston for 2 years and made it a prosperous city through illegal trade and smuggling. This prosperous city didn't last for long, though, as Jean was then later forced to burn it to the ground and leave because of American search parties looking for him. While escaping into the Gulf of Mexico, Colombia sent Jean a letter of marque. A letter of marque is a document that grants an armed vessel or privateer to attack and capture vessels that are owned by a nation at war with the issuer. This letter of marque granted Jean access to capture and attack Spanish warships without the act of piracy. While fighting multiple Spanish warships for the Revolution of Colombia, Jean was mortally wounded and died on February 4th, 1823.